What smell is basically chemoreception at a distance. You're picking up molecules in the air by the receptors in the nose. And this is in contrast to taste, where you had to have the chemicals in actual contact. You had to be in contact with them to detect them. So, can you taste without smell? Yes, you can, but smell enhances the taste and enhances our appreciation of what we eat. So, the two are somewhat related. And the whole function of smell is really to protect us. We can detect desirable food by inhaling it. We also detect hazards if the smell is unpleasant. And then we can detect pheromones. And these are the smells that we give off that we're not aware of. But there are personal smells, and they're very important. We detect blood relatives, children. A newborn baby detects mommy by the pheromone, by the smell. And then the role in taste. In taste, it's usually the exhalation part of the breathing that we use for detecting the smell of something, particularly food. And so it's the biggest role in detecting flavor is the part of the smell that's in the back of the nose. The tongue manipulates the food and reduces or releases these compounds that we detect as smell. So pheromones are our personal scent. And pre-adolescent children can detect full siblings, but apparently not half sibs. And presumably this is important to avoid incest. It's very strong in mice. The genetics are important. We have a lot of genes that we don't know about that are related to pheromones and our detection of them. And as far as we only know of a few of these genes that are related to pheromones. But these are the social odors. These are what we use to bond with each other, to build relationships, to retain key memories, and to avoid disease, to avoid danger. And supposedly men are attracted more to women during their fertile phase. We apparently can detect that. And it's very variable among animals. Mammals have a very good sense of smell. Most birds do not, but penguins are the exception. And then the carnivores and the ungulates, or the horses, have a very strong sense of smell. Now, as we all know, dogs have terrific senses of smell. They're about 1,000 to 10,000 times better than we are. And bloodhounds among dogs are about 10 million to 100 million times better than ordinary dogs. And then we have grizzly bears that have exquisite senses of smell. And it was said that a grizzly can detect carrion 18 miles away. So it has a phenomenal sense of smell. And some insects, for whatever reason, can detect smell. Your mosquito can pick up your carbon dioxide from you. So perhaps it's smelling you, and that's how it's finding where you are. Dogs, we think, can detect diseases, because if we have certain diseases, apparently we excrete certain smells. And we're just beginning to figure this out, what dogs can do. So we think that in their blood and their urine, they can detect certain cancers, lung cancer, ovarian. If your blood sugar is low, apparently we secrete a hormone called isoprene, which apparently the dogs can detect and pick up. Children with malaria, we all know that COVID-19 affects the sense of smell in about half the people who have the disease. And then there's certain conditions like narcolepsy, migraine, and Parkinson, which affect the sense of smell. And apparently the dogs are able to detect some people with these diseases. We don't know how they do it, but this is a bit of research that's currently being done. So how well do we detect odors? Well, we can detect over 1 billion unique scents. And apparently there's about 128 unique odor molecules, but there's about 30 different components to them. And you come up with 80 million to 100 trillion different scents that we can detect. So we have hundreds of different receptors for this. And apparently, unlike taste, the odor receptors can detect more than one type of odor. So here are the types of scents that we can detect. And they've categorized them. We have the woody or the resinous scents, like cedar, fragrant and floral, or flowers, fruity, citrus and other fruits, minty, which you're all familiar with, sweet. And then we have this scent which we call popcorn, which I never heard of. But when I come to it, you'll recognize it for what it is. You just don't recognize the name. We have chemical scents, pungent smells like stinky cheese. And then we have decayed smells of rotten stuff. So among the woody smells, we have our pine, our cedar, sandalwood. And then with the resinous smells, we have probably pine would fit in this category. And there are several trees I've listed here that have characteristic aromas. For fruity, we subdivide that between the citrus and the non-citrus, and we're all familiar with that. There are about 24 different types of mint, and if you've grown mint, you know that you can choose between them. They have a particular chemical called methone, which is characteristic of mint, and as humans, we find it generally bracing, cool, and pleasantly aromatic. Sweet smells, honey, dates, coconut, and interesting that vanilla is apparently the most pleasant smell that we have. Now here's the popcorn scent. And this is the scent that we have on fresh baked bread and things like that. We have the chemical there, and it got its aroma because there's a plant that apparently smells like popcorn if you crush its leaves. And apparently it's the smell of the bear cat. Well, I never knew what a bear cat was, but here we have one. And apparently that's a common smell. Our pungent smells, we have blue cheese, onions, garlic. We're all familiar with that. The chemical smells, fruity, vinegary smells, and ethyl acetate, which the kids like to smell, which is in the contact cement. And then we have the smells of rotting stuff. These are nitrogen compounds. It's due to protein decaying, and their characteristic chemicals called cadaverine and adequately named putrescine. So here's how we do it. This is our olfactory system. And it's the nose, and it's particularly the top of the nose and the back of the nose. So if we start at the bottom of the slide, we have these chemicals in the air that we breathe, and the receptors in our nose pick them up. Actually, they're dissolved in the mucus that the nose produces, and that's how the chemical receptor can detect it. So then we have the olfactory epithelium, which lines the nose. Next to that, we have the bone that separates the nose from the brain. And then we have the fibers from these receptors going to the part of the brain, and that's the frontal part of the brain that's also associated with emotions. So smell, scent, and emotions are related to a great extent. But this is the mechanism. Now, unfortunately, because of the relationship between these smell receptors and the brain and the nerves going through the bone into the brain, this is a pathway for possible infection. So if you get a sinus infection or you get an infection, there's a very real danger that this could spread. Well, we have 6 different types of olfactory epithelium, and it's only about 1.5 square inches. So we don't have a whole lot. You compare that to dogs, which are much smaller than we are, but they have 26 square inches of olfactory epithelium. And they have about 100 more sensors for each square inch. So no wonder they smell much better than we do and can detect more aromas than we can. So how do we actually detect the smell? Well, the odorants, which means are these molecules in the air, go into the upper part of the nose, they dissolve in the mucus, and they're detected by the receptors. Now, the mucus is produced constantly, and it's a constant flow. It's replaced about every 10 minutes, and we're totally unaware of this happening. But each receptor can respond to different odors, in contrast to taste, where each receptor had a particular taste. Here, the receptors respond to many different odors. And then, of course, we have disorders of smell. We have a very few number of people who just can't smell at all. Some of this is congenital, but they just can't smell. Then we have some that they smell abnormally. And some people have a very acute sense of smell. These are probably the people who are checking for perfumes and the people involved in designing perfumes. Hyposmia, a decreased sense of smell. Presbyosmia, now we decrease our sense of smell as we get older. So we could detect odors much better when we were younger. Dysosmia, a distortion of smell. We may smell things that aren't there, or we may smell things that are incorrect. And then heterosmia, we can smell, but we can't distinguish what we smell. Now, COVID-19 was notorious for blocking your sense of smell. And about half the people who had COVID lost their sense of smell. Fortunately, it was temporary. But this was true of all the influenza viruses, not just COVID. It's true of influenza itself. It's true of MERS. When we get an infection that involves the nose, our sense of smell diminishes. Well, what causes a disorder of smell? First and primary, aging. If we have any sinus conditions or respiratory infection, our smell goes down. People who are smokers have a diminished sense of smell. And in fact, the people who stop smoking, the first thing they say is, my taste is better, my smell is better, I'm eating more and I'm gaining weight. If you have a growth in the nasal cavities, like a nasal polyp, that may interfere. If you have a head injury, certain hormonal imbalances, dental problems, gingivitis. And then there's certain chemicals, radiation, and drugs that affect smell. And then certain diseases, particularly the neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinsonisms and Alzheimer's, will affect our sense of smell. There are a whole list of drugs that are involved in diminished smell. A lot of antibiotics. Now, fortunately, most people don't have this as a side effect, but this is what's been recorded. Antibiotics, such as very common ones like azithromycin, Cipro, blood pressure medications that are fairly common, a lot of the statins, thyroid medications, estrogen, zinc. Fortunately, most people are not affected. For most people, this is not a side effect, but it's been reported. Dental conditions, gum disease, caries, gingivitis, all of this affects your sense of smell. And then we have phantom smells, smells that are not there. This is secondary usually to a head injury, can be respiratory infections. If your sinuses are inflamed, people that have migraine will have an aura that precedes the migraine. It's commonly visual, but it can be olfactory, where they have a sense of smell that they know is not there, but they know that the migraine is coming. Temporal lobe seizures are associated with diminished smell, brain tumors, and usually the smell that is phantom, that is the hallucination, is unpleasant. It's rarely a pleasant smell. So usually it's rotten eggs or garbage or a burning sensation. But we have a lot of smells that are good for us. We enjoy them. And if I go through them, lavender is reportedly to help you sleep. It's calming, and it helps to calm the mind, body. Cinnamon is good to sharpen the mind, so it's reputed. Improve cognition. Citrus, we feel more energized. Pine, fresh cut grass, reduces stress. Vanilla enhances your mood. And pumpkin supposedly combined with lavender is reputed to be an aphrodisiac. I have no idea what a pumpkin smells like. But we have other scents that are good for us. Peppermint boosts our mood, supposedly increases our concentration, our ability. Jasmine odor eases depression. Apples supposedly mitigate migraine, and olive oil stimulates appetite. So we utilize these smells, and the motion, scent, and memory are all connected in the brain. So those of you who read Proust, when he talks about the Madeleines, he's talking about the taste, he's talking about the smell of what he experienced when he was a child. And then we have perfumes, which of course is very pleasant. And some people smell in color. And so reputedly, if you have a citrus aroma, you think orange, yellow, and green, and grass, brown and green. Now, it's interesting that smell is our earliest developed sense. And the developing fetus has this fully developed at birth. And so up to the age of 10, this is the most developed sense in a child. And presumably this is very responsible for the child bonding with the mother because it detects the pheromone of the mother. Now, after age 10, sight becomes a more important sense. But we recognize people, and we do so by the pheromones. Now, of course, there's a commercial, and you might say it's an abusive smell. We're manipulated. Nike has a signature scent. It's their characteristic scent, and it's reputed to be a rubber basketball sneaker scraping across the court. That's Nike's scent. Soccer cleat and grass and dirt. All your food smells are basically chemicals. And of course, the people who are in marketing are using this extensively. And the smells that they're producing are cinnamon, vanilla, because it's been shown that if the aroma of cinnamon and vanilla is in the atmosphere, people tend to spend more. It increases sales, it makes shopping more pleasant. And of course, if you've ever been to a spa, you know there's fragrance in the air. And so there's scent in commerce. And they do it to entice us to buy, to give us a sense of well-being at their establishment. And so they target us. And so the characteristic smells are lavender, orange, lemon, vanilla, eucalyptus, peppermint, chamomile, sandalwood. Now, the commercial people recognize that 70% of people will recognize a smell and remember it, that they're 100 times more likely to remember a smell at a place than anything they've seen, and that if there's a pleasant smell in a place of business, 84% of people will remember it, and they will tend to linger longer and perhaps buy more. And then we have the new car smell, which of course you see in a new car, but we also have these tags that you can hang in your car to give it back the new car smell. And basically, it's the smell of freshly tanned leather and musk. So that's what it is. Now, this is something that I saw. This is on Amazon's website. And can a car air freshener really do all this? This is the ultimate in advertising. If you go to Amazon and look up this product, this is their description. Say hello to the brisk, clean smell of Black Forest air conditioner, the seductive smell of the seductive scent of the gentleman on a nightclub rendezvous, on the prowl with supreme swag and confidence. When the crisp musk fills the air, there is no doubt that sexual desires are on the prowl. The mysterious scent awakens primal urges, opening up a world of possibilities for a great night. Black Frost is brewed ice cold to preserve the delicate olfactory stimulants until they are blended to perfection. One spray of Black Forest puts any bad mood on ice, numbing the negativity for an epic night. Black Forest liberates the senses with the exciting, sensual, and thrilling scent of determination and desire. Fine cologne and musk scents ignite the excitement as they captivate the imagination. The bold aroma of black frost will fill your car with a thrilling scent of rebellion and independence. Black frost removes the nasty odors of the vehicle using an advanced odor neutralizer. Well, all I can say is, wow. Where was this product 60 years ago? But this is for real. Now, what's in this stuff is musk, cologne, and some floral things. Now, if you've been, what? Well, that's it. It smells like cologne, and it's a pleasant fragrance. Now, there are people who comment on Amazon, and invariably, I think it's men who've commented on this. The comments have been that this stuff smells really good, and they give it a 5 out of 5. So there you are. Well, you have to know that there's no regulation of perfumes or fragrances under U.S. code. So that's why you will never see a list of ingredients in any perfume. You have no idea what's in this stuff, and they're free to put in it whatever they want. It's anything that is considered a fragrance or a perfume is exempt from the law for pure medicine and pure drugs. Natural perfumes usually are an alcoholic extract of rose, hyacinth, and other plants. But there are a lot of chemicals in perfumes that are allergens, hormone disruptors, asthma triggers, neurotoxins, and carcinogens. And this is from natural perfumes. Now, phthalates are added to perfumes to make them last longer. The natural fragrances can be just as toxic as the synthetic stuff. And we have all these other compounds, the aldehydes, the parabens, and the triclosan, which is an antibacterial agent. Some soaps have it. So the thing about perfumes is some people are allergic to them, but even though they're pleasant and we use them and we enjoy them, there is absolutely no control over them, and there's no law regulating them. So for your information, the most addictive smells we have: wet earth, coffee, gasoline, and glue. Those are the ones we like the best. The smells that men are most attractive to are the woody, the musk, vanilla, sweet, and floral. Now, you all know that if you have a gas leak, you can smell it. But natural gas, propane, butane are odorless. And so we purposely put a chemical in them so you can smell them if there's a leak. And the chemical that they put in is usually a mercaptan or a sulfur-containing compound. So it smells kind of stinky. It's an annoying compound, but its purpose is safety, so that if there is a leak of this stuff, you will detect it. It's relatively innocuous, the additive. It doesn't affect the burning qualities, but it's there for our personal safety. And so finally, smell is an important sense. We enjoy it. We make use of it. It allows us to be safe. We use it to detect a lot of the foods that we eat. And it's there for our general well-being and enjoyment. So if you have any questions, be glad to answer them. Okay. Oh, well, we have a microphone. Okay.
How is smell related to memory?
I'm sorry, how?
Smell
Well, it's
and
to memory. Well, the smell part of the part of the brain is in the frontal lobe. It's in the anterior part of the cortex. So that's where memory is. It's also the part that goes to the taste also goes there. And so the smell probably goes to the amygdala, it goes to the thalamus, and then it goes up to the frontal part of the brain. So it's the front of our brain that really is detecting and interpreting this. but it's also the area that is involved with our emotions and memory.
Joe, when you first started, you said something about the mosquitoes, that they could smell carbon dioxide from a person. Is that what you said?
Yes, that's correct. And in the last lecture I give, where I talk about senses that we do not have, but that insects do, the mosquito can smell carbon dioxide. We give off carbon dioxide, so they can zero in on us.
Well, everybody produces carbon dioxide when you
That's
smell.
right. And we're all lunch to the mosquito.
I just want to add a comment that has been with me most of my life. And I was applying for a job in a hospital in Boston, and I walked downstairs to where the employment office is, and I smelled ether. Now I'm 24 at the time. I had my tonsils out at age 4. And I remember the gas coming toward me. And when I went to interview, I said, before I have my interview, can I ask you a question? And they said, yes. I said, was the children's floor down here? They said, yes.
Yes.
And the smell of ether actually came back to me. It was very
I
weird.
think most of us have had that experience, and I have also. The smell of ether still evokes bad memories.
How do we perceive smells? For instance, you talked about stinky cheese, and you mentioned blue cheese, but for me, if I eat a nice piece of Roquefort cheese, I'm in heaven. But somebody else will say it's stinky. So how do we perceive? It's like you go to a hot spring and some people eat sulfur. So they say it's like rotten eggs, but some other people, it doesn't bother them.
Right.
And I smell quite a bit. I have a high sense of smell.
Right. The thing about smell is we do detect the smell. I mean, there are people who like Limburger, and there are people who like durian, which is the stinky fruit. And even though the smell is probably unpleasant for some people, the fact that it tastes so good overrides it, and we eat it anyway. I mean, I like cheese that has some aroma to it. I don't find the smell of Limburger pleasant, but the taste is sweet.
Joe, you mentioned that, I'm over here. You mentioned that eucalyptus is a pleasant smell. And for me, that's one of the smells I really can't stand. Are there other ways that people perceive all of these different smells? Some are good for some people and bad for others?
Well, it's just like the smell of the cheese. For some people, it's yum, and for some people, it's yuck. So, it depends the emotions that evoke in you. The part of your brain that deals with emotions is right there with the part that receives smells. And so it depends what your experience has been.
Any other questions?
Are perfumes from other countries better regulated than the ones in the US? So for instance, if your perfume was made in France, is it more likely to be pure?
Probably not. Well, we get French perfume here. It does not have a list of ingredients. So you still have no idea what's in it. You know what you like and you know what smells good, and that's the perfume you choose to wear. But you really have no idea of what's in the stuff. And as far as I know, regulation in Europe is probably laxer than it is here. Because I know in Europe you can buy antibiotics over the counter, cortisone over the counter. You can't do that here. So I think US regulations are probably tighter than the ones in the rest of the world. I know in the rest of the world, it's not required to put a detector in natural gas cylinders. So I had the experience in North Africa where some people had a space heater powered by one of these cylinders, and they were sleeping because it was leaking. So we have that here as a matter of safety. If your gas line leaks, you know it.